So it took me a while to come to this realization. But in all honesty, Elden Ring is severely overrated. Severely. It's a good game, don't get me wrong, but there are just way too many things holding it back from being great. Amazing, even. First, I'm going to start with the base game, then work my way to the DLC. The first thing I'm going to touch on is the reuse of bosses. Now, there's no problem with reusing them, but it has to be done correctly. An example of Elden Ring reusing a boss correctly would be Morgoth. First, we fought him before we get to Stormvale Castle, then again at the Elden Throne. And for the most part, those battles are different. Different movesets, different dialogue. As long as you can add something new and keep things fresh, there's no problem. But even the developers kind of got this wrong because they made us encounter him again, like outside the capital or the ramparts, wherever he was at. I think the overall reception towards Morgoth would have been better if that encounter never happened, and it doesn't even make sense. Like, the only other place that I would justify putting that version of him at is before you reach the Forsaken Church. Completely replace the Moog Omen battle. It'd make more sense for Morgoth to be there, since he is the king basically, and him still being loyal to the Golden Order, he'd want to keep its secrets secret. Why is Moog there? Why does he care about guarding that area? But again, if you do that, you run into the issue of reusing assets. Should have just put a Crucible Knight there instead. And again, there's no problem with reusing assets and bosses. Like I said, it just has to be done correctly and make sense. One of the core issues with the game is that there are too many bosses, when most of them don't even deserve that title. The Erdtree avatars, for example. I have no problem with them, except for the ones in Lanedale Capital, to hell with them. But they're simple and easy. Do they need to be bosses? No. Just make them regular enemy types. There were so many enemies that were given boss status, and my only question is, why? You have the Erdtree avatars, Crucible Knights, Tree Sentinels, the Burial Watchdogs, etc., etc., etc. Y'all get my point. To my knowledge, there's 12 unique bosses in the base game, and that's actually crazy. Less is more. And my God, there should have been less of this game. I'm actually going to use this to segue into my next point. Elden Ring is just too fast. I mean, I love exploring, but there are times when it's just a whole lot of nothing. And I'm sure you guys have heard this time and time again, so I'm not going to harp on it too much, but man, am I getting tired of open world. Not knowing whether to go this way or that way, getting lost, getting there, finding nothing. Free will is a lie. We like being told what to do and how to do it. Anyway, yeah, cut the map by like 30%, 40 if I'm being harsh. One thing I'll say is that From always creates these amazing worlds, and I was completely enamored when going through Elden Ring for the first time. But the world's hollow. Yeah, I understand that's the point of these games. No hope, dark environment, yada, 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 but while playing, I couldn't help but feel that a sense of authenticity was missing. The world simply doesn't feel alive. It's hard for me to pinpoint why that is, but one thing I know for sure that contributes to this is the side quest. Now, I'm all for figuring things out on my own and not having my hand held. There's something about making a discovery and connecting the dots using the information given to you. You know, you feel smart. But if you're not using a guide, you can kiss those storylines goodbye. Before I continue, let's give a round of applause for those who completed the side quest without a guide. Yeah, a real big brain activity right there. Here's a cookie. Seriously though, pulling up a video and switching back and forth from that to the game every 30 seconds is immersion breaking to say the least. But I'm going to be honest, I have no problem with the overall story of the base game. My real issue is Shadow of the Erdtree. By now, we all know that Radahn is the final boss of the DLC, which makes absolutely no sense. I'm going to say this time and time again, but it should not have been Radahn, it should have been Godwyn. He is the only demigod that isn't present in the story, the only demigod we don't see, and the only demigod we don't fight. We kind of get a boss fight with Fortisax, but it's not him. Now, why is that? Because his soul was killed by Ronnie on the Night of the Black Knives. Let me make this clear. If you can bring Radahn back, who's been basically dead twice over, you can bring Godwyn back as well. Now, There are people that'll say that Godwin can't come back because his soul died. But the realm of shadow is where all manner of death goes. Don't you think it makes sense for his soul to travel to the shadow realm after its death? You don't even necessarily have to kill his soul. Just say that it was weighted from his body and sent to the realm of shadow. With his soul being sent there, this gives credence to the Death Knight bosses. Now, speaking about them, it doesn't really make sense for Godwin's body to be in the realm of shadow when the lands between aren't connected to it at all. Unless if his soul was sent there, it had an adverse effect on the various locations that it traveled to. The adverse effect being the cadavers. With that, you have the Death Knights. Instead of them being a couple of bosses, make them a whole new enemy type. But later on, early in the story, they can be allies. Have an NPC or two working with Leda and the others. Now, these guys, being Godwin's most devout followers, retrieve his soul and place it within Mohg's corpse. Miquella doesn't even have to charm them. This can play to a twist of some sorts. Yeah, Miquella is a sick manipulating fuck, but he's given some grace here. And eventually, when he casts aside his Great Rune and it's revealed that his Band of the Hawk was being controlled the whole time, it's also revealed to us these Death Knights were free, and they just wanted to revive Godwin. And this adds more to the allure and the lore of the Golden Child among the demigods. Now, let me get to Miquella. There are only a few things that bother me with his storyline, aside from him molesting his slave brain-dead brother. But I feel like there's a lot of things left on the table. For one, where is his shadow? Within the base game, it's said that all Empyreans are given their own shadow in a set of 2 fingers. The Empyreans being Ronnie, Melania, where the fuck are her fingers in shadow, and Miquella. Regarding the shadow, there were a couple things that could have been done. Either you relegate it to NPC status like Blide or replace the Putrescent Knight. With the shadow becoming an NPC, we can get a little creative here. Obviously, everything remains the same until Miquella casts aside his Great Rune. Trina is Miquella's heart essentially, but he rids himself of her. Now, with the shadow being a companion to the both of them, it knows that this is a grave mistake and urges against this. But Miquella, thinking he knows best, dismisses that notion and charms the beast. Once the charm is broken, we embark on a new mission to bring the two of them back together. Or make the final boss a gimmick fight. Have Trina turn herself into a talisman, and once we're grabbed twice, instead of getting our heart stolen, we give Miquella his heart back. This ends the fight. Miquella realizes his wrongdoings, takes his Great Rune back, repairs it, and gives it to us. Now, if you don't have the talisman, everything can just proceed accordingly and everyone dies. Not Trina, though. At the end of the DLC, after we defeat Radahn, we go back to Trina and she's dead. And all we get is a flower headpiece. Just really anticlimactic and doesn't make sense since at this point they're 2 separate individuals. I'd rather have it be after we kill Miquella, we visit her again. We drink her nectar 1 time and she thanks us. After we awake, she's just gone, leaving her fate ambiguous. Another thing I want to point out is that in the base game, it said that sleep offers some relief to those stricken with madness. You'd think that with Midra and Trina being introduced, that another layer of story would be expanded on. What's the connection between madness and sleep? Is madness caused by sleep deprivation? Holy shit. Are the 3 fingers basically like Z Broly and they went fuck the world because they didn't get enough sleep? Another thing I want to point out is how it literally makes no sense why you have to kill Mesmer and use his flame as kindling, when if you choose to inherit the frenzied flame, you should already be able to do that. My biggest problem with the DLC is how there is no cohesion between it and the base game. After the charm on the knights were broken, I went looking for Freya. I had the bright idea to travel back to the lands between and go to Redman Castle. She wasn't there, she ended up being in the Shadow Keep. But that's what I mean when I talked about connecting the dots and making discoveries. I can't be the only person who thought about going there. And just imagine if for some odd reason she was there, having an actual conversation with Jaren. Making a discovery like that without the use of a guide would have made the experience 10 times better. Who am I kidding? Maybe I'm just coping with the fact that I wasted my time going there. Let me get back on track. So, since we inherit the Frenzied Flame, we're able to burn the Shadow Tree out the gate from the beginning. This gives us early access to Anira Lim. but also gives us new story beats for Mesmer. While playing the game, I came across both the Iris items, and I just thought, like, if we're able to give them to Queelang and Yolan, why not Mesmer? In his second phase, he removes his eye, which turns out to be Marika's rune. Why not use that same concept but on him? After defeating him, we can grant him either an Iris of Grace or an Iris of Occultation. Grace restoring him to his previous form, and Occultation improving on his base serpent form. With him being restored, he is invited to the Round Table Hold and returns to the Lands Between. With his return, we get new dialogue from Gideon about Mesmer and Mikula, since technically they are missing demigods. All of this being done before we beat the base game, of course. I'd say before we burn the Earth Tree. But just think on the ramifications of Mesmer being in the base game. Could he be summoned during the fight with Radagon? After the Elden Beast's defeat, he has a touching moment with his mother and forgives her for abandoning him. Or he curses her to her face. Whatever option you prefer determines whether you have mommy issues or not. Anyway, is there a relationship between the God-devouring serpent and Abyssal Serpent? I can definitely see Mesmer picking up where Tanith left off at and him completely eating the remains of Rykard. Him becoming the new ruler of Volcano Manor, taking Tanith as his new lover, and the Abyssal God Serpent. Wait. The base-devouring serpent. No! You guys get my point. And also to harken back on the topic of cohesion, after killing Rolana, I was a little disappointed to find no new dialogue from her sister. I wore her armor in front of her and everything and got nothing. You'd think that after she sees her dead sister's armor, she'd awaken out of her stupor. Her remembrance being what brings her back to life essentially, and she tasks herself with traveling to the Shadow Realm to try and revive Rolana. DLC is meant to enhance the base game, and I'm not saying it doesn't, it just enhances it in the wrong areas. I'll say this, if you don't hate gingers after playing the game, you will afterwards. The areas are beautiful, well-constructed, and large, but they feel so empty. And there are other things I can talk about, but I'll save that for another video if that's what you guys want. If you guys are interested in the ideas I explored, I can go full fanfiction, or I can talk about what a sequel for Elden Ring 2 looks like. I mean, in fact, we even got a canon ending. It's basically confirmed that the Age of the Dustborn is the direction they're taking the story. But like I said, if there's some interest, I'll make the video. Just let me know in the comments. Like, share, subscribe, all that good shit.